Hello, all welcome. Feel free to come on in, keep rolling in. I just closed the door to give us a little more quiet in the space and less competition with the folks chatting outside. Thank you all for coming to this forum on congregational care. It's an area of shared work in the congregation that I feel really strongly about, and I'm excited to invite you all in your own unique way to this, again, shared work and shared ministry. The structure of the forum today, I'll start by sharing a little bit about my philosophy around congregational care. We have some texts, both from scripture and other sources that we'll read in the space together, to begin building more of a shared language around what is congregational care and what does it mean to care for each other. This is both thinking within the congregation, so the networks of care that exist within the walls with the folks who are already here, but also the ways that this work can expand outward into the wider community as we care for our neighbors and our relatives and our friends of friends, because we know that our communities are not isolated and that we are parts of wider networks and systems. One of the core values I hold around congregational care is that it is rooted in relationship. It is rooted in us knowing each other's stories, knowing where we come from, knowing what we can bring, and also what we need to ask for. And I know that in that last part in particular, asking for what we need, can be hard. It can be challenging. It can be hard to say, I have been doing this act of care for years and I can't anymore, and I need some support, and I need some care. And I want us over time to be able to practice sharing our stories with each other and saying, can you add me to the card ministry list? I would love to be in touch with someone from Grace, or, it would actually be lovely if I could have a prayer shawl as I'm about to go into an unexpected surgery. One of the things that is true about congregational care is it is hard to do it if you don't know what people need. If you don't know that someone is in the hospital, we can't send a visitation team if we don't know that someone's there. And so really thinking about the ways that we can share and ask for what we need in terms of care, as well as what we can offer. So these first grounding texts, and we have 3 slides of grounding texts because it is a wide-ranging topic. These 2 are from Care Work, Dreaming Disability Justice. And one of the frameworks that I come in with pretty strongly is a commitment to disability justice, and what that means is knowing that ableism is one of the structural sins of the world, and knowing that our ability or our capacity is something that everyone's ebbs and flows. So what someone can do when they're 20 is different than what they can do when they're 40 or when they're 60. Our bodies change, our capacities change, and we are all, some disability justice activists name it as, we are those of us who are temporarily able-bodied, because at some point all of our bodies will run down, we will experience things that can be framed as disability or challenges in those ways. And so disability justice as a framework is something that I bring to my framework on pastoral care and congregational care. And in a little bit, we'll go into the differences of what is the difference between pastoral and congregational care, because they are different. But so I'll just read these 2 grounding texts out loud. Collective care means shifting our organizations to be ones where people feel fine if they get sick, cry, have needs, start late because the bus broke down, move slower, ones where there's food at meetings, people work from home, and these aren't things we apologize for. It is the way we do the work which centers disabled femme of color ways of being in the world, and that's a framework that's explored in the book at large, where many of us have often worked from our sick beds, our kids' beds, or our too crazy to go out today beds, where we actually care for each other and don't leave each other behind. When I see disability justice flourishing, it comes from years of relationship building and building trust, from messing up, making repair, learning from mistakes, and showing up for each other. So this is slow work, and this is care-filled work. And many of you have heard me say this, you will continue to hear me say this, but I believe that church at its best is a place where we practice living together in ways other than how society wants us to live together. Where we practice slowing down, where we practice noticing the sacred, where we practice being in relationship with people that we might have never met outside of these walls. It is one of the few spaces where we are brought together by a shared belief and a shared curiosity or shared doubts, and we're not brought together based on age or hobbies or what your kids do for sports. This is a space where we are encountering people very different than us and very similar to us all at the same time, because we are all deeply connected and deeply different. And we all have a role in the care of each other and the congregation. This next grounding text is from Mutual Aid, building solidarity during this crisis and the next. I mistyped this morning as I entered this in. By participating in groups in new ways and practicing new ways of being together, we are both building the world we want and becoming the kind of people who could live in such a world together. One of the things we did during Advent was, on one of the Sundays, we asked folks to turn to their neighbors and share, what are your dreams for the world? What are your dreams for the church? And how are you participating in those dreams? And when Pastor Sarah and I read those through, there's a deep longing for connection and care, and saying, hey, the world can be better than what it is. We can be better as people, as community, as a species than we are. And congregational care is one aspect and avenue to do that in. And then a reading from John. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. And this is really the root of congregational care, is loving each other, caring for each other, and knowing that we each can contribute. This isn't, you don't have to be a certain age or a certain gender or have a certain background to be able to participate in the work of congregational care. You simply have to say, you know what? I have some capacity to care for someone in my community. And there's different ways to do that, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I have a desire to do this. That is the baseline. There's ways that we are supporting that work. If you don't have experience with it, we also have many folks in this congregation who have years and decades of experience doing this kind of work to support all of us in doing so. And this is also a space where, again, one of our big focuses for 2024 is listening to each other and hearing each other's stories. There are lots of new faces in this congregation, mine included, and we want to be able to practice knowing each other's stories so that when something comes up, when there is an injury or a death in the family or a grief anniversary, that we know and trust each other enough to be able to share that. That root of trust is also essential in this work. And then this final, longer grounding text is from 1 Corinthians. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but many. If the foot would say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear would say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as God chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many members, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And those members of the body that we think less honorable we clothe with greater honor, and our less respectable members are treated with greater respect, whereas our more respectable members do not need this. But God has so arranged the body, giving the greater honor to the inferior member, that there may be no dissension within the body, that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it. We are interconnected and have different skills and gifts, and we need each other. We're connected to each other. And so we're going to shift from grounding texts into a framework of what even is congregational care, which some of you may have been asking when you came to this forum today. So I view congregational care as the big umbrella. It is a framework that we can then put many things under. And some of the things that fall under congregational care are things like pastoral care, small groups, prayer shawls, visitation, phone calls, meal chains, prayer, education, the card ministry, outreach, blood pressure checks, transportation, and much more. This is just one kind of representative sample of what is included in congregational care. You'll notice that congregational care is different than pastoral care. Pastoral care is often what folks think of as when you set up a meeting with myself or Pastor Sarah, when one of us comes to visit you in the hospital, when one of us writes a letter or a card. And there is a beauty and a gift in that, and also there is a beauty and a gift in empowering the congregation to also be that for each other. So that if there is a moment where you say, hey, I actually live by someone who goes to Grace, and I know that they have trouble getting to worship, so I'm just going to see if they want me to pick them up on Sunday mornings. That is something much greater than pastoral care can do. Congregational care is a way of connecting us all with each other, and pastoral care is one element of that, but is not the only element of that. And once networks of care are built within a congregation, it is, I would say, one very small piece of the pie of congregational care. So this is sort of how we frame that. And so some of the things that are existing and renewed at Grace. So these are things that this community already does, and there are ways of plugging into this, which I'll share in a few slides from now. So we have a card ministry, which meets 1 to 2 times a month to write milestone birthday and anniversary cards, and regularly write to our homebound members. And then this ministry also sends seasonal cards, so Christmas cards to our college students, and other sort of seasonal cards as needed. This is my 3rd month here, and so I'm still figuring out the rhythm of what makes sense to send in addition to what's already listed here. But so this is a card ministry where you can write commit to writing 1 card, you can commit to writing 5. And there's also a group that is meeting so that if you want to write in the same place with people and have that be a moment of community, that is also available. The prayer shawl ministry is something that I am calling renewed for 2024. It's something that Grace has historically done. We have a bunch of prayer shawls, so if you know of someone who needs or wants one, please let me know. We have them already, and we are forming a group to make more of them and to be in community together while we knit, crochet, sew, and again, with all of these, if the meeting times don't work for you, there are still ways of getting involved, and that is something I will continue to, yes. So we're thinking Wednesdays for that, but I'll connect with you when we get to that slide. And then the visitation team is something that has existed in various forms. The befriender ministry was sort of similar to the visitation ministry. And this is the team that visits with our homebound members as well as people experiencing injury or illness or who are in the hospital. Phone calls and calling to connect with folks also falls under this umbrella of visitation, even if you are not physically going to visit a person. There'll be some training with an opportunity to share communion and bring that along with you. And this is a team that is collaborative and responsive. So there'll be folks who have requested kind of ongoing visits, but then it also is responsive to the needs of the congregation when something happens. We have monthly blood pressure checks after worship and pastoral care and visitation. So this is some of what is already existing and renewed for 2024. And then we have the next slide. I'm just going to prep you all for a bit. There are a few ideas on there already, but this is going to be the moment where if you have an idea for a care ministry or an aspect of congregational care that you don't see reflected here, we're going to have a list of dreams and ideas. And I'm going to kind of live record them so we have a record of it so that we can come back and revisit it. I've populated it with a few ideas already, but I'm really looking for your input here. So one thing that I would love to see the prayer shawl ministry expand to is making baptismal blankets for those who are baptized at Grace. We have kind of a good number of baptisms that take place, but not so many that this is an overwhelming possibility. I think it's very well within our capacity to do that, and I think that could be a beautiful way of saying, hey, you were just baptized here, and now we are wrapping you in this blanket that we have made to send you into the world with. Transportation and rides, figuring out a system for giving and receiving rides for worship on Sunday mornings and other worship events. I think this is something that is happening kind of organically within the congregation, which is great. And I would love to see it be a little more systematized, just so if folks don't know that they can request this, or they say, oh, I don't know anyone well enough to give them a ride, but I would love to give someone a ride to church and I live really close, we can then connect folks with each other. And then doing a forum on disability justice and sharing more about that framework and about that work. So here is the point where, what are your ideas? What are your dreams? What are we not doing that you did at a previous church that you would love to see here? What is something your neighborhood does that you think the church could do as well?
Looking around, I see most of the faces I know where we used to have coffee in Koinonia Hall after the service, where we could visit with our friends to find out how they're doing, what they're doing. We have been known to sit and talk until the second service started. Yeah. It's one way to connect with these people that we don't see, except on Sunday morning.
So I'm hearing a space,
We had coffee
Yeah.
in koinonia at the round tables, which is much more socializing and communicating.
let me get this so I can actually type. I said I would do that and then did not set it up.
I would like to second that. We did that at another church we went to, and it was amazing. The tables were always full, the little kids were running around, people got to visit. It was wonderful. So second that, but another couple considerations would be respite care. If somebody needs, I need someone to sit with mom while I go get this or that, or I'm a single mom and I need some alone time, or and I need someone to come. So respite care, and then also something that happened at our other church. And I don't quite know what to call it. There were just people that knew when new families came in, they knew enough other families to say, these people are a new family. I bet you guys would really hit it off, and they would kind of introduce the two families, with the congregational family being kind of prepped that, okay, we're going to invite them to dinner, and we're going to really get to know these people. That was also amazing.
I kind of am missing some kind of women's Bible study. I know they had them when I first came, but there's never any evenings, and I work, so I can't do anything.
You could add that men's and women's Bible studies. They used to have the men's Bible studies too.
But I have some of those in the evening.
Yeah. Breakfast is kind of tough these days.
Yeah. And I want to add, we also used to have parents' night out, when you mentioned that. It was the best thing. The parents could bring their kids for a few hours and go out, and then people from the church would entertain kids. And it was, when I had kids, it was the best thing ever.
Yeah. I think also besides transportation to and from for church, if we could get a list of people who would be willing to provide transportation for people who may have medical appointment or something where they are unable to drive themselves.
Or just get to church.
Well, no, but we've got that, but this is to help them in their life or appointment.
Regarding the prayer shawl ministry, at our other church, we also made prayer shawls, blankets, or prayer shawls for children who were ill or in the hospital, so not just baptism. Also, we expanded into prayer shawls for celebration. So, for instance, if somebody was having a very significant anniversary, or as a farewell to a pastor retiring, or we had enough prayer shawls made, so we gave one to every graduating senior. So, I mean, just some possibilities if we could get enough made. But making children's prayer shawls is really fun.
But this is the way to get together too. You need quoting beads, you need prayer beads, you need prayer groups. Bring lunch and we'll stay for it.
There was at our former church, like family get-togethers. Well, it didn't have to be families, but groups of people would get together at a house, and you'd all bring something to share, and you just would socialize or play a game or just talk, or rather than at church, but you'd have a small group, and your group would kind of determine how many you want. You want 8 people, do you want 10 people, do you want 15? And you'd bring something and you just socialize. There maybe would be prompts at the table, and then you would just kind of, you could meet once, you could meet twice, you could kind of decide from there where do you want to go from here with that. You know, do you want to change your group every time? Do you want to stick with the same? Everybody kind of did things differently, and you could pick different dates. You could kind of, okay, you know, like one year we did it, everybody's going to meet the same date, and then some years we changed it that, all right, this year everybody's going to just meet once a month, but it doesn't have to be on the same date. You know, but just kind of smaller community groups, just to get to know people. Because Nick and I are finding that we like it here, but we're still like, we're not connecting. Especially Quillen's like, Mom, you're dragging me to church and I don't know anybody and I'm like 15 and like, who am I gonna talk to? These people are 80. Like, give me something, like I'm gonna talk to somebody who's 15, Mom. I don't wanna talk to somebody who's even like 40. They're all old. I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, we'll try to get you somebody who's like, at least 20. Like, okay. Working on it, Quillen. I'm trying. Like, so we're like, okay, like, we hear you, like, but, so it's just kind of, right, it's hard to do that when it's like, there's nobody that's kind of, another 15-year-old's going, hi, I'm 15 too, because they're all like, church is over and he's in the parking lot, and it's like, Sarah's like, see ya, and he's like, already gone. Like, okay, goodbye, Q. Like, meet another 15-year-old in the parking lot, I guess. I don't know.
Karen?
I don't see anything about parish nurses.
Yeah.
There's blood pressure.
Yeah, this was, more before. No, they never,
It sounds like a lot of churches are having this social gathering with supper. And I had that at Zumba Lutheran in Rochester, and I met so many people. There was no Bible study, it was strictly social. We got to know these people very well, and then we went on to another group. I can't remember how many weeks we met, probably 4, because it was dinner for 8, it was called.
That was our Christmas.
I've been coming here for 18 years, and we used to have a group that might be paid games or something. Every 2 months, 3 months. And I actually got asked by the about some names. The groups had too many at that time. It was every month, wasn't it? That we had a pancake breakfast, or we had board day, Because we were heavily involved in that for 2 years, but we got bumped out because it was just too much.
Yeah.
But something like that, social event,
Okay, when we were Winter Texans, our first RV park, we had a potluck every Thursday night, which was lovely because then I only had to fix one meal, one portion of a meal. But we would have potluck, and then we would bring our games in after that. But I think trying to schedule it once a month would be too much, because we're too diverse. But monthly or quarterly, to at least get it on the schedule so we can get together and just relax and have fun together. Yeah. Life is sometimes overscheduled, so you can, quarterly might be nice.
I think the challenge for 2024 is these are all really good ideas,
But
and I hear the passion from different people on different subjects. What we need to have happen is not to rely just on the pastoral staff,
Right.
but the people that have these ideas
Right.
step up and take charge, not necessarily do it on their own, but at least
Right.
make it happen as a community.
Yeah, and these are all great, and I'll share a couple things that I'm noticing, and some things that actually I probably should have put under the new and renewed for congregational care that I did not because of how wide-ranging the scope is. One thing that Pastor Sarah and I are we care a lot about is structures in the church that work for the church. And so making sure that it's clear of like, yeah, if you have an idea for a group, here's how to make that happen. And currently it can be a little challenging to say, we have these great ideas, but who do I talk to about reserving a room? Or how do I make sure that I'm not scheduling it over 3 other things that are already scheduled? And so doing some work to make sure that that is clearer. There also will be, and you will hear us talk about this many times over the next few weeks, small groups in Lent. And those are going to meet for the 4 weeks in March, and will be groups of folks that are intentionally curated so that it's folks who are newer, folks who have been here for a while and have a space for people to talk and get to know each other and hear each other's stories. And it would be, like, I would love if at the end of one of those, a small group said, we're actually gonna keep hanging out. And we're gonna keep meeting and keep these conversations going. Yes, I'm reading over the ideas, but yeah, we wanna make sure that people know how to start things that you care about, and that we are giving opportunities for people to get to know each other. So that then we can say, oh, we actually do have a critical mass of people again who would love a quarterly board game night. Or we have enough people who say, I would love a potluck every 2 months. And that we have the knowledge of who would be wanting to engage in those ways so that they work and that they are attended and feel like they are meaningful for the folks who are there. So the kind of the last few bits of the forum, there's going to be a how to get involved in some of the new and renewed, and then a time for any questions. And again, I'll keep those documented here so we can revisit them. I'm not going to promise that I will have the answer to every question that you ask today, but we will record it and go from there. So, how to get involved. There will be sign-up sheets at the end of this forum for the card ministry, prayer shawl ministry, and visitation ministry. So the card ministry, you can contact myself or Shirley Hansen. Shirley, can you wave? Lovely. If you want to get involved, this will meet likely Wednesdays in mid-afternoon. If you want to get involved and that time doesn't work for you because you work, let us know, and we'll pull a set of cards and names for you to be able to write. Same thing with the prayer shawl ministry. If daytimes don't work, we'll be able to get you kind of patterns and ideas for that. And contact myself or Linda Judge. Linda, can you wave? Lovely. If you want to be involved with that. And then for the visitation ministry, contact me if you'd like to be involved with that. There will be some initial training, just so that everyone's on the same page around best practices about listening, confidentiality, and bringing communion to folks. And again, that can be something where if you say, I know that I can make 3 phone calls a month, or you say, I can't make a regular commitment now, but if something emergent happens, let me know, and if it works for me to do that visit, I would love to. That full range is welcomed into this ministry. You don't need to say, I will be able to do 3 visits in person a month, if that's not what's realistic for you. If it is what's realistic for you, wonderful, and let us know that, but really, with all of these ministries, they work best if we honor our own capacity and time and don't try to do everything or more than we actually can do for the sake of saying, I should be doing more. You should be doing what you have capacity to faithfully do. Any questions? Yes.
I don't have a question that is going to have an answer yet, but I really would like, if we could as a congregation, address the issue that was brought up about the people who are 15, might be beyond our confirmation ages, but there's a lot of ages, especially with families that haven't already established relationships with families that have kids of the same age. How can we make or help with those connections? I think that's an important thing. I feel like we recognize everybody at the time of confirmation, and then when they go off to college, we usually, or in the past, gave them a blanket. But it's like, oh, look at that. I didn't know that they were of this age and now they're going off. So I don't know. If we can come up with something, that would be, I think, a good thing.
My question is, when you talk about disability justice, are you including other disabilities?
Yes.
Like children that might have a disability here? Because I think that's important. I think parents need support.
So, this was just a comment on Marlis's thing about getting families. We finally took Eric to Sunday school one morning, and the church secretary says, well, hi, Tom. Welcome back. We always see you guys when your kids have to start Sunday school. So, if the families are starting in Sunday school, we've got to keep them involved, but life is a heck of a lot more involved for them than when we were growing up and stuff like that. And then another thing, to sign up. Years ago, we had that interest inventory we'd fill out every fall. Well, I think, could we say maybe half the congregation worships from home? Could we somehow get an interest inventory online that they can see, these are the things we would like to do? If you're interested, say yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say make it anonymous so they don't feel that they're going to be called on to lead, because Norwegians don't lead.
I hear that desire for the interest inventory to make sure that people know what's happening, and if they want to get involved, I think it would need to not be anonymous, because then we don't know of saying, oh, I'm interested in visitation, and then we don't know who.
Well, you could, yeah, they can sign it, but if they, would like to learn more about what's happening, but are afraid to become a leader, and I've been in too many groups where people are afraid to become a leader.
And I think that's something that Pastor Sarah and I are trying to be very clear with our invitations of when it is hey, actually, we would like you to share this, being upfront about that, and also being very clear of, we are inviting you to be involved at your capacity.
Yeah.
We are not about to put you into the meeting and then say, okay, you are now to be, and I think that's likely a little bit of a shift of saying, you can say no if we ask you to be a leader. You can say no if you don't have capacity to do something at this time. And you can say yes, and you can say yes and. Yes, I'd love to be involved, and I only have capacity to do 1 card a month. Yes, I would love to be involved, and my life doesn't let me attend daytime meetings. And being able to create a culture where we can name that with each other, I think for me, it's a sign of, I would say, a well-connected and well-trusted community when we can both say yes and no. And both of those things are important to be able to say and name as we live busy lives both inside and outside of these walls.
What age did you say the prayer shawl met? What day?
We're thinking Wednesdays,
In the afternoon or evening?
afternoon.
What time did they?
Ask Linda.
Yeah, we're thinking kind of mid-afternoon, but also if we find that a lot of folks are interested who would need an evening or a post-Sunday.
I would prefer an evening, but do something else during the day.
Yep.
That depends what time, if it's around 3:30, I can do the afternoon.
Yeah, I think with some of, especially both the prayer shawl and the card ministry, we're still setting the time that works for the most folks who are interested in it, so.
I'm hearing too many things and my mind's getting together, but that 15-year-old fascinates me. I would love to spend some time with a 15-year-old right now. And then what Marla's is saying about like people with kids or young things. So then I'm thinking of that, I'm thinking of the time, and I'm thinking of my stomach. It's a mess inside. But quite often after church, when we go to these forums, we are hungry. We're empty nesters. We're not 80, but we're 60s, and we're hungry. And quite often we end up picking up something to eat on our way home. If there was a way to have an area where you could go, because right now, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Punch Pizza's on my mind right now today. And so if there was a sheet and like 2 or 3 families could say, today after church, we're gonna go to Punch Pizza, and then they can kind of get to know each other then. People, there could be a sheet for Carboni's, there could be a sheet for Perkins. And it's cost prohibitive for people that just money is tight, and I get that. Everybody be paying for their own lunch on a Sunday. But it's a way, my kids that were born and raised here, confirmed here, married here, all that stuff, not conceived here, but anyway. Some of their best friends are the adults that took the time to get to know them. They didn't know too many kids in our church here because we live in Lakeville and this is an Apple Valley church, so they didn't have connections at school from kids from church. But, I mean, I don't want to name names, I don't want to call people out, but there were adults that intentionally got to know my kids, and that was so important. So, I don't know, like I said, it's 11:30 and I'm hungry. I mean, like what if your family and my husband and I, we just went over to Punch Pizza, then we go our separate ways and go home, something like that. So, Dick Donnell, you make that work. I have the idea, but we just need somebody to take charge of it and make it go. But, you know, just, we can't have all 40 of us go to Punch Pizza now, that's why I'm thinking.
I mean, we could.
We could.
Or somebody could start the ovens for Papa Murphy's.
Five different eating places, and if on a Sunday morning, I go up there and I write, well, Ryan and Amy Fleeser too, and somebody else, sees, and kind of, like the size of the place, because you want it small enough, 10 or less people. If you have 20, I'm not gonna sit on the same end as that 15-year-old. I wanna sit close to that 15-year-old. I mean, no matter where we go, but something like that. It's a spontaneous, the church doesn't have to do anything but provide a list of the restaurants and some blanks so we kind of control it. And it's not a hard number, like if there's 10 of us instead of 8, whatever. I don't know, like I said, I'm just thinking out the top of my head.
When we had the Cub Scout pack, we had, 5 dens? We would set up activities. We would not have it on the same Saturday of the month because everybody had a different thing. We set it up. We'd love to have you come, but we know that there's swimming, there's football, there's wrestling, there's baseball, everything. You're busy. If you can come, we'd love to have you come. But just, you set the date, and if you're available, please come.
Well, here, I think people are already at church, and they're on their way home, and they're hungry. It's a
But
Sunday morning.
give us a warning.
Yeah.
So I'm not defrosting my
every
Ludafisk.
Sunday, every Sunday,
It's every Sunday.
every Sunday, whoever
Oh, no, I
wants,
like that.
Oh, you're not hearing her.
whoever wants to go out to eat every Sunday.
You start the list, I'll sign up next.
I mean, we just need a list of like different possibilities, to go to.
Yeah, Janet?
I just want to say, all of these ideas and our discussion is really good, and it's good to have new ideas. But we do have a lot going on at Grace, which are a lot of good things. And if we had enough people to fulfill all of the things that are already going on, Grace would be doing a great job. Just picking up what we are already doing. Because we need more people in all of those areas, I'm sure. And my last thought is, if you are passionate about something, maybe you just want to try to step up and lead it.
Amy's got the Sunday lunch thing down.
Well,
One second, Pastor Sarah.
Thank you.
I think also one of the things that I care a lot about is there is a lot going on at Grace, and I don't think people know all that's actually going on. And so that's something as a staff that we're thinking through of, there's a lot of great things happening, and how do we make sure that everyone knows that they're happening and how to get involved. Sarah?
Yeah, I think one of the, and I stepped in kind of midway here, but one of the themes that I feel like I'm hearing is just this hunger to know each other more. And I think Pastor Reed and I know full well that just by getting humans in a room together for worship, for a meal, for a class, like doesn't necessarily mean that those connections and stories are going to start to happen. And so like a chief of mind for us going into this to try to strengthen our sense of community is how we can structure spaces where we're intentionally trying to help people connect in a more real, like vulnerable way if they're ready for that. Because the other thing that I'm mindful of is if we just plan potluck dinners, I think those are great. I'm all for a potluck. But it's really easy when we step into a potluck to congregate with people we already know. So I'm just like saying this as to people that I know are so committed to strengthening our sense of community here, is how important it is that we sort of wear two hats when we step into those spaces. Both, I want to celebrate the connections that already exist. And I want you to embrace each other, and I want you to sit by the meal. But I also want us to be thinking, what is this space like for someone who doesn't come in with a lot of, who's maybe hungering to be introduced to one person? Or, because I am routinely hearing from people who've been here for decades that they're stepping into spaces where our community is gathering and having the experience of not knowing as many people as they used to know, which is like, that means our community is changing, new people, new faces, new lives are being added. But it is sort of a challenge to us to figure out how do we both celebrate the connectivity that has been part of this place for a long time, and I see that as like a gift of God, and also make sure it's not keeping new people from being able to enter it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just a sort of pastoral invitation to think about, if we're going to congregate, how are we challenging ourselves to sit with people we don't know and to ask curious questions about their lives?
Okay, when we did the potluck dinner, it was pre-computer programming, as we did it with poker chips. We had appetizers, salad, okay, we did it with poker chips. We numbered the poker chips for each couple and spread them out. You come into a potluck dinner, you draw a number.
Yeah.
That's the table you sit at.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, even once I think that's great, but even once you're seated at the table, how do I make sure that I'm not just referring to a memory that I've shared with 4 people and keeping, it just does take a kind of intentionality to think, I don't know these people, let's start with curiosity about their lives.
We go to the Sons of Norway conventions. We don't sit with anybody from our district, and our district goes from Minnesota down to Texas. We go find a table where we don't know a soul.
But not everybody that's that.
It's almost,
Nobody's that loudmouth like moi. We know that. But
it's almost like these tables would need a host couple to
Yes.
get the ball going.
Okay, that is one thing you can do, but you
That
have to make
it
them.
can sound kind of formalized, but I think it's absolutely true. That
Yeah.
it just it helps us break the culture a little bit and establish a new
You could have the questionnaire of questions to ask to familiarize, but yeah, but you have to break people up. I'm sorry, we love to sit with people we know.
Yeah, that's like totally human nature. We all do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That can happen at donuts time after church. You sit with who you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's for
occasionally
somebody
we
else.
change tables when the table is full. Then we have to sit with somebody new.
Thanks, Amy.
Amy's off to put it.
I'm going to put pizza. Ryan told me, but I don't care.
Oh, invite these cake starters, come on.
That come all the time. You make a suggestion or somehow tell them you need to bring someone in that they know that does not belong to our family. If you get one new person from that group,
So events that would feel welcoming to potentially someone who is looking for a church but hasn't yet connected with one. And then one more question, yes.
I would love more shows with and I just loved our help with the VBA. And it was wonderful. Sort of there was some reads playing children and
Yeah, how do we strengthen our intergenerational connections so that our church is as welcoming for someone who is 5 as someone who is 95? Yeah. Great, well, thank you all for this time together. I'll be around if you, especially if you want to sign up to learn more and get connected with the card ministry, prayer shawl ministry, or visitation/phone call ministry. Come down here after, or I can come to you. And we're kicking those off kind of in the next few weeks. So, thank you.
Are you feeling here? Did you hear that like every front desk worker was like that? Oh yeah, you, Shirley, and you're not feeling well too? Yes.
I have a sandwich to eat anywhere.
I know, it's just like because not coming in and not feeling well, not coming in and not.
I miss you in the choir.
Well, we had a commitment Wednesday.
And so we didn't want to come Sunday and not know.
That's why we practice for a half hour before church.
All right.
There's not a reason. Joel, big guy that sits on to my right.
We had one day.
He's here maybe one Sunday a month, maybe 2. And most often he's not.
Is there a schedule for when the choir actually sings?
Yeah. Should be in your folder because Steve passed it out.
We came after it was passed out.
He passes it out every quarter.
Well,
I'll get you one. Come Wednesday.
Wednesday, I think we're good. Yeah.
We're coming Wednesday.
Come Wednesday.
All right.
I'll see that you get one.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we just didn't feel like we could.
We like to know our music. We don't like to. We don't want to be.
I usually take mine home and practice.
Well, that's what Joel does.
Yeah.
You know.
So does the choir sing about like every other Sunday, or is it really random?
Historically, we sing every Sunday. Every Sunday. When you can, if you can't, you can't.